What is up, my Lorcana Goons, and welcome back to the Lorcana Goons channel. It is a very special weekend for the history of Lorcana. We're about to have our very first world tournament this weekend, and we have a very special guest. We're joined with head judge for most of the DLCs that we had, Albert Berdalens. How's it going, everybody? We're here with Zach Stone and Albert, who was head judging a lot of the Disney Lorcana challenges throughout the season, and he's going to give us a little bit of an insight on what to expect for the world tournament, which is happening this weekend. We have 28 players that have done very well from DLCs to nationals, from the Western Hemisphere and whatnot, to see who is the very first Lorcana world champion. They're going to be duking it out for, it's looking like the Jafar's have Pexwell crown there, right, Albert? But how's everyone doing? What's the expectation this weekend? Are you guys hyped? How are we feeling? It's been a long time since we've got to see some Lorcana on like a Twitch live stream, like a huge tournament, right? But Albert, I know you really wanted to talk about like what the expectation is for the viewers, because this is going to be a new tournament, a different kind of tournament. We have a couple first, I think it's what, 3 rounds of a new type of format. Would you like to explain to the viewers?
Every single player that is playing this weekend is very, very talented, and they've had to go through a lot to get here. But this format is designed to push even those players to their limit. First of all, they are going to make way more decisions and way more strategic choices than they have at any other tournament. And then they're going to have to do it in formats and ways that they have not done before. And not everything's going to be in their control. They're going to be playing super sealed, and they're going to have to put together a 3-ink combination deck instead of just opening and using whatever cards in any ink color you want. And then they're going to have to demonstrate proficiency and skill in playing with all the different ink combinations that would be possible. They need to know not only the decks they're playing extremely well, but they need to know all the matchups and all the possible ink combinations their opponents could play too.
Not only are we going to see the best of the Lorcana players illuminate the field, we're going to get to know the next season of DLCs. But I actually do want to mention that super sealed format actually will introduce side decking, right? I think that's what's going to happen. So that's something that's brand new to Lorcana. I'm really stoked to, see how players side deck in this game. I know that other TCGs are going to have that influence in side decking.
Yeah, so sideboarding is a thing that many other games have, and it's something that Lorcana has not had. And I think it's a very interesting addition, but that is going to add to the strategic choices that each of the players has to make. They not only have to make a deck initially, but then they have to sideboard in between games as appropriate. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow them to keep situationally relevant cards that might be useful only in certain scenarios and keep them on deck for that perfect matchup, and then bring them in only for that matchup when it's relevant, and not have to pay the price of having them in your deck when it's not relevant and having to ink them or whatever. So that is going to add a significant level of strategic depth, and these players are going to have to get used to it. The mark of a really good player in a limited format is that you will never hear them complain that they didn't open good cards. They just have gotten over it. An average player or an amateur player in a limited format always complains about the cards that were in their packs. And that's just a natural thing to do. But a pro player never does that, because they know how to milk every ounce of value out of the cards that they get. And they realize the luck of the draw is what it is. They make their own luck from there.
I really like that you said that, because I've never played this type of format personally. I've played other card games before, but I know the biggest one that this is kind of reminiscent to, from what I've heard anyways, is Magic the Gathering, because I know they hold a lot of tournaments that are half sealed, half constructed. So this type of play where you make a deck out of cards you're opening, this is not something that I'm personally used to. I think the first time I ever played a tournament like this was for Lorcana. It was for like a local league night, the first weeks of a new set. We all open up some packs and make a deck like that. And I appreciate you saying that, because I'm very new to this format, like I said, and one of the first things I did was like complain that I did not open any good cards. But I'm noob, I'm a noob too. I'm a noob too, and it's definitely important to understand, like where you can always grow as a player. And I'm very glad you said that, because now I know that I will never complain, because then I'm doing something wrong. But yeah, you're basically gonna have to build a deck with a bunch of commons, uncommons, and very little, more than likely, little rares, super rares, and legendaries. Maybe you enchanted in some of those packs too. That'd be crazy. But like we're saying, man, rarity isn't everything. Being able to milk every ounce of value, like you said, on every card, from something as like minuscule as like a common Goons character, to something high cost or heavy hitting. Maybe you pull something really nice in your Reign of Jafar, or in your like Shimmering Skies, like an Elsa Fit Spirit or something. Because those are very good cards. What I can think of in draft. The side decking part, I think that's very interesting. Like Zach and I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh a lot, and in that game they just automatically let you do a sideboard in your like best of three situation. I know a lot of players have talked about kind of wanting a side decking in Lorcana, not wanting side decking in Lorcana. I think it's really cool. I hope that when we're watching the stream, we get to see a little bit of an insight on the camera angle and kind of watch the players swap out their cards, because I think that's a very hard skill to learn, is how to side deck. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, because the 28 players that we have in the World Tournament, they come from a variety of different backgrounds. Some of them are Magic Pro, some of them are Yu-Gi-Oh Pro, some of them are like online gamer, games that aren't even like physical trading card games. Pro players. Some of them are just, this is their first Lorcana, this is their first TCG. Shout out to the European national champion. I forget his name. Don't tell me his. I can't think of it.
I almost,
Starts with a D.
I almost was.
Oh, Domingo,
Oh,
Domingo.
Domingo.
Yeah, Domingo. I knew it. Domingo. Yeah, I know Domingo. It's his first TCG, bro. So there's gonna be a lot of like layers and a bunch of different skill levels of what you need to do and what you need to accomplish. So, Albert, you clearly have experience playing card games, and card games of this magnitude, or even judging them. What do you need to think about? Like, because I'm sure a lot of local tournaments are gonna go down this weekend in inspiration of the World Tournament. So there's gonna be a lot of local players who have to do this type of format too. What do you have to think about when you're opening these what is it, 24 packs that you have to pick for your first 4 rounds?
The interesting thing here is that Lorcana operates a bit differently from other card games. So it's going to be very interesting to see if the players that have experience with this type of format in other games are actually at an advantage compared to the ones that don't and are just learning it for the first time, because they may have to unlearn some habits that are true in other games but are not true in in Disney Lorcana specifically. For example, in a lot of games, the best cards are the most rare cards. In Lorcana, that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of very good cards, very good staples that are at common or uncommon rarity, and so they're going to show up a lot more often in these pools. So you're going to have to plan for them a lot more often, and as a result, you're going to have those answers prepared. But in this particular case, there might be some principles that apply overall. So in general, you want characters that have protection from something. Either they have evasive, or they can't be challenged in a conditional manner, or they're just overstated somehow. In other words, their strength and willpower is higher than it otherwise is for the characters of similar cost. You're going to want removal, in other words, a way to banish or otherwise get rid of a character off the board. Bouncing to hand is not going to be nearly as good as it is in constructed format. Card draw is obviously king in any format, but especially in this one because it's so much less common in a sealed pool. And discard is probably going to be a lot worse, frankly, because the card quality is going to be just a huge range. So you're probably going to be able to ditch a card that you're not super excited about anyway, and it's just not going to be that brutal. And the loss of tempo might be tough. And ramp, being able to ink extra cards is probably going to be significantly worse than it otherwise is, just because those top end bombs aren't going to be as reliable. So there are a number of general principles that are going to apply. But I actually think that all these players are going to have to learn this game in sealed from scratch, because this is just a different game. It's got very different nuances, so it'll be very exciting to see how that plays out.
Yes, all players are like on even playing fields, right? Because they're given like the same card pool to work with. And there's a lot of colors that I was thinking about within those card pools. Like Amethyst has Finders Keepers, Library, and a lot of other consistent card draw. Steel has some decent mid-range bombs, but I do like Calhoun being available from the Azurite Sea. So I'm really certain that there's very few colors that you want to go away from with this card pool. So yeah, we have the pack simulator ready to go, and I'd actually like to see what we get from opening our Super Seal draft.
So here we are on a Lorcana pack opening simulator, and we're going to open up 4 packs each of Reign of Jafar, Arcasia's Island, Azurite Sea, and Shimmering Skies, because those are going to be the sets that the world's competitors have to use. And so basically, they're going to be opening 24 packs. They can build a deck with 3 different ink colors within those packs. And a couple things you want to look out for, like Albert said, draw power, very important. Some type of removal, also very important. I like that you mentioned, by the way, not to prioritize like certain bombs or certain strategies where you're relying on like super rare characters, legendary characters, cards you're way less likely to pull. He did mention something that we've been talking about, how Lorcana does this thing, which I love personally. The best cards aren't the highest rarity, and I never really thought about how that takes into effect for this type of format. Because yeah, like you said, man, a lot of power staples that are common, uncommon, Pete, Tipo, Sail the Azurite Sea, very good cards in our current metagame, but are they going to be that good in this kind of draft style format? So let's go ahead and open a pack. We're going to go each pack one by one and kind of evaluate the cards. So let's say we open up our first pack of Jafar. Bam, this is what we have as our first pack. Oh, look at this, we pulled a rhino, a non-shiftable rhino, and it's mostly commons and uncommons with a super rare Yzma on edge. We got to pull the lever. I like this already. I like this pull the lever. I have a question real quick, Albert. If we're doing this 3 ink limitation, if I pick a dual ink colored card, I have to stick within those. I've locked in 2 colors already with that one card.
So the way the rules are worded, you need to play both of those inks in order to play that card. If more than 2 inks are allowed, then as long as you have those 2 inks plus another, you're fine.
Okay. So side decking wise, right? Like, so is there a world where I can make my deck green, red, yellow, right? And then when I side deck, I take out all the yellow, put in a bunch of purple, and then I add in, pull the lever. Can I do that?
Sure.
Oh, that's
sure.
cool.
But keep in
I'm
mind that
cooking.
you're going to have to return it. You're going to have to return it to its original state for your next match.
Oh, okay. So you have a specific deck list already for the first. Okay, I see. And then you swap out the cards. Okay, so that's kind of cool. You can do kind of a smoke screen thing where you're like, okay, my whole side deck is 15 red cards. I'm gonna take out I'm gonna take out all these colors. You can start cooking. Start cooking some stuff with this. I like that.
Exactly.
One thing I want to say about the dual link stuff, especially with 3 colors, is like, let's say you do pick, amethyst emerald. That means you can pick amethyst steel and emerald steel dual link cards. So you open yourself up to 3 different dual link cards,
Yeah.
and that could be some interesting dynamics and gameplay. But I do like this quick shot card. Deal damage and draw a card sounds really good and limited.
Yeah, I like it too. It's removal. That's kind of what we mentioned right now. Remove. So far in this first pack, you got removal, you got draw power. You do have some unfortunately like high cost characters. This uninkable Yzma, I feel like you just won't play it in your deck. I feel like it's this is a card where I look at and in this type of format, and I think 6 cost uninkable. It's gonna be kind of hard to get to. 3 strength, 6 willpower is a decent body. It's not a shift target though. Quest for 2, and its ability is super specific. Yes, we did pull the lever with it, but for it to resolve doesn't feel necessary. So I feel like if I were to immediately think like, cool, I got some good cards in my deck, it's gonna be like quick shot. This is one. I personally don't know how do vanillas. How good are vanillas in this format? Because I like the Vanish characters. I think the Vanish characters are gonna be really good in this format.
So I think you just need to do the same thing you always do when evaluating cards. You just need to add up numbers. What's the strength? What's the willpower? What's the lore? Compare that to the ink cost, and go from there.
Okay.
There's some characters that really get away with having quite a lot of stats for nothing. Gonna just be about the colors that are otherwise important for you, and then you pick your vanillas to fill it in.
Okay, nice. Yeah, if that's the case, then if we're evaluating cards in that way, I think a lot of the Vanish characters are gonna be like auto implement into my deck, just because you're able to play a Magic Carpet here that can quest for 2 strength, 4 willpower. But with this format, you're picking a lot of cards like Quick Shot, I imagine, a lot of action cards to have extra removal. So maybe the Vanish strategy isn't even the best strategy when you really think about it. But let's go ahead and move on to our next pack. All right, this is our second pack of Jafar. I like this card a lot. Vincenzo, on play, deal 3 damage to a character. 7 cost, kind of, is that too high of a cost though for this type of format? Is that too greedy?
Pretty high, man. Pretty high.
Yeah,
It better win the game. It
I-
better win the game. for
Really,
7.
like that? Okay, yeah. You see, this is how you know I'm bad. I'm bad at this format, because I look at that card and I'm like, oh, cool, bomb. I want to play the bomb, But there's probably better cards in this stack here, right? Like another quick shot. That's actually really nice. Having multiple cards in your deck that can deal 1 damage, draw a card, deal 1 damage, draw a card. Is that good?
Anything that says draw a card on it is good.
Oh, okay. So it deals
And
damage
keep in
and
mind-
draws a card. Double whammy.
Keep in mind, you're also thinning the deck. So you only have a 50 card deck. So the more that you cycle through cards, the more likely you are to see the absolute best cards in your deck.
That you know what? That's a really good point, man. It's a 50 card deck instead of a 60 card deck. Like right off the bat, your chances of seeing specific strategies is just way more, I guess, consistent. So yeah, well, you could really take advantage of this, man. Like, look, we saw a second quick shot, a second pull the lever. Wouldn't it be cool if we saw like you said, Zach, emerald, steel, and amethyst? Like that, those were our three colors, and we just built around that, you know, because we're seeing some pretty consistent cards here, which I really like to see. Any other cards here stand out to you guys?
You know, I like that Alice re-readies your damaged characters that they just can't quest till the end of the turn. Getting some extra value with trading into multiple characters with their ability can also come up. But she's decently statted with the 2 lore value. I think you also have to kind of remember in this game you do need to win the race. So characters that have 2 lore, I think, are very important to have in this kind of format. And the ability to just re-ready something to protect it from being challenged again. So you might get some extra lore value. I know that there's the Prince John, the Fraidy Cat in this set. So I like this card a lot too.
I really think that you're solidly on Emerald, Amethyst, Steel. If this was your first 2 packs you looked at, I think it's pretty obvious.
Okay, yeah, that's so you're like, okay, cool. I'm drawing into some good strategies. I like that we got another Vanish character, by the way, a Palace Guard. That just seems broken with this whole like strategy we're going for. So let's just assume we're headed towards that direction of like Emerald, Amethyst, Steel as we go into our next pack right here. So here we have 12 more cards. We opened up some rares, commons, uncommons. But yeah, we're starting to see duplicates of certain cards like Joey right here, the Blue Pigeon. I know we've pulled him already. A Captain Hook Forceful Duelist seems broken in this format. 1 cost that can swing for 3. This swings over like most 3 and 4 cost characters, which I really like in this current meta. I think Ward is kind of buns in this meta, right? Like this Tramp Dog's probably not going to see much play. Ward doesn't seem too good in this current format.
One of the other big differences in Lorcana compared to other card games is that board control is just going to be way more important, especially here. There's almost no sweepers. In other words, cards that finish everything or otherwise get rid of all the characters or locations or items or anything else. So board control and efficiency, getting every ounce of value out of each card on the board is going to be so critical. And there's a lot of cards that help you do that.
The Captain Hook is a very good card, I think, to have. It's going to stop your opponent from turning anything sideways early on and being able to just kind of find more cards because of that. You might not even need to play like a 2-drop if you have that Captain Hook in play. It might just be enough of a threat by itself.
Not a lot of purple, steel, or emerald cards here off the top of my head, but I do like this Jasmine. It's a really low cost cards. When you're building a deck like this, guys, like what are you aiming for in terms of like a curve, right? You only have 50 cards in your deck. Are you trying to play like 4 1-drops, like 6 2-drops, or like well, how do you treat your deck building? You know, are you trying to stay more like low to the ground, the highest cost characters like 5 or 6?
It really depends on the archetype. I think you're really looking for options because you're going to play against a lot of different types of decks, and so you need that versatility. For example, I really like the Cusco, the that we opened, the purple one, that lets you return a card back to your hand. In other words, reuse a threat or an answer or whatever. That type of thing, because you're playing empty-handed a lot of the time, it can be very useful.
Oh, I like that. And it's an amethyst card. It's an amethyst card, so it's going with that strategy we got going. But I like that. I didn't even realize you could bounce your own stuff with this Cusco. There's probably some pretty cool things you can do here with this ability. So very nice, very nice. And now we're going to our fourth pack. Our fourth pack of Ranger Jafar. So second Palace Guard, okay, so that Amethyst Steel, and a third Quick Shot. Bro, we're cooking. We are cooking with this. Oh man, if we pulled this, I'd be pretty excited. But I imagine there's probably some other like strategies we're not considering because I'm seeing a lot of Sapphire cards that we're picking up here too. This card, the Wardrobe. I know we like valuing draw power like pretty high up there, but this requires an item. This requires an item to really be useful. So like that makes me feel like this card's not going to be that good. Do you guys, off top of your head, is there a lot of items in the card pool from Shimmering Skies to Ranger Jafar? I feel like there's not too many low cost items anyways.
The other archetype I've been seeing is the Sapphire, Amber, and then whatever your third color is kind of a puppy archetype. And there's the television set for this. But this is the type of card where you just accept that you're going to play it for stats. And if you have an item, it's busted. And if you don't, then it's just okay. and you just accept that risk.
Oh, I like that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense because the stats are very good. The stats are very good, and you just kind of take the risk depending on what else you have. Okay,
Keep
I
in
like
mind,
that. So,
you don't actually even have to play it. You're discarding an item card.
Yeah, the
yes.
cost of
Oh,
the item
yes.
doesn't matter.
That's true. That's true. Okay, okay. So we have the third quick shot here, and another Palace Guard, which is nice. General Lee, 3 cost, 2/4, resist +1. I think these are some good stats for a sealed character. Resist +1 on a 4-body character. Not too bad, right?
I like Resistor right now. It's it'll prevent a lot of like ping damage. We do have to like kind of look at the shift Alice because
Hmm.
that one could get out of hand if I'm being honest with you. Being able to just put damage counters on each other characters might be something that can come up. There is a lot of cards from Arcasia's Island that can benefit a lot for that dual color. Maybe in a limited format, we might see red green alongside something like amber or even steel. Just to kind of like finish every character off. That might actually be important. So I'd consider this card too. I'm liking the Alice and Wonderland cards in limited format.
Yeah, so far they're actually looking pretty promising. Being able to shift onto that Alice, or even just playing this for 6 ink seems kind of high, but every time you quest, put a damage counter on something, plays around resist, and if resist is going to be very good in this format, maybe that Alice is very good, but you got to open it up, right? So that's the 4 Reign of Jafar packs that we've gone through so far. Looking like we've only pulled 2 supers and 6 rares, but most of the rares and supers seem pretty unplayable, like we were just talking about. Very high cost, like the Mushu, the Vincenzo, the Alice. We have a Perdita here, which is also very high cost, and this effect does not look like it's going to go off. Even if you're building a current puppy deck in your constructed format, it's hard to pull this effect off. So I feel like if you are going that kind of like Amber Sapphire puppy strategy, it might not necessarily include Perdita, but she is a shift 4 that can quest for 2. So kind of depends on what you pull there. But we have to move on to the next set, Arcasia's Island. Arcasia's Island first pack. Let's see what we get. Some more steel and purple cards. I really like the steel package right now in this meta because this Jafar, the aspiring ruler, being able to give one of your characters challenger +2, having crabs, it's like a crab. Having crabs in your deck just seems kind of good, right? So I feel like you'd be able to really take advantage of some of the smaller weenies you have in your deck, the low to the ground cards with this Jafar. Any quest for 2. I like this card a lot.
A card that I actually wanted to take another look at is the Maid Marian, because that's going to allow you to be a little bit more aggressive. You are getting a decent amount of stats for a 4-cost body, and there's a lot of ally characters in this card pool. You are getting an additional color to play with in this format, so you can look at a lot of different options, but it's actually pretty strong to be able to do consistent damage, even if it's just 1 damage in a format like this. Like we did mention before, there's no sweepers. And kind of like forcing opponents in awkward situations is probably good across all formats you can play in this game, but especially in limited, because getting extra value from your characters being banished is enough for me to really want to consider this card.
I kind of feel like this in my family wouldn't be the best in this like type of meta that you're trying to accomplish, like just gaining 1 lore, drawing a card. It does draw a card, but it's just replacing itself, right?
Yeah, but it's a song.
Oh,
You know,
okay, okay.
so let's say you have a character that costs 2 or something, has a big body, and it can just sing. You know, you would be questing for 1 anyway. You sing, you gain the lore, you draw the card. All of a sudden, you're just cycling through your deck faster. So that might, you can play it for free.
That, you know what, that is a lot of value. That is a lot of value. Instead of questing, you're just drawing and questing at the same time. Must be nice. These cards aren't that good, right? Sapphire Coil. This is not. Although this is like one of the best cards in Ruby Sapphire metagame, you just probably ignore this in your draft picking, your seal play.
It's hard to surrender affecting the board right away to set up something like this that is really geared towards long-term value. Like, you better be planning for a long game if you are going to take a turn off to play this and then hope that you get enough value in subsequent terms for that to be worth it.
You might want to play it though as an item to discard for that wardrobe. So even though it's not a card you would inherently want to play, just having something that could just come up as an option. I don't know if there's cards that actually allow you to like ink from your discard pile or ink from the top of your deck. And if that's the case, then that can actually be pretty useful to include. So finding cards that benefit better from it, then yeah, you can consider it.
Yeah. And the last one I want to go over another item real quick. Amber Coil. How good is like healing? How good is the ability to remove damage in this type of format? Is it relevant? Because I feel like right now in Lorcana, it's really just Rapunzel that you're kind of using for that type of ability, right?
It's definitely better in sealed because there's a lot less likelihood that your opponent can answer a threat super quickly. They may have to plan out over multiple turns how they're going to address things, and that will involve piling up damage on certain cards. So all the cards that either counter or take advantage of that approach are going to be much better in this format just because it's a slower pace, more grindy type of format. So the ones that get in the trenches and that grindiness are going to have a lot more impact than they do in constructed.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, I could potentially see this being a useful. If you're playing already the amber color, I could see this. I could see amber coil, one cost item, constantly heal your characters. Not too bad. Second pack, Arcasia's Island. I'm liking the emerald steel stuff we're seeing, man. This gizmo duck right here, resist +1, 4 strength, 3 willpower on a 4 cost, inkable body. Love to see that. This character can challenge ready damage characters too. The damage part, not too relevant, but it's still a decent character, I think, for our Emerald Steel Amethyst deck that I think we're going to go after. That's kind of what I feel like we're aiming towards. Another item, Steel Coil. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, draw a card, then choose and discard a card. This ability to cycle cards, do you guys think this is good in this format? You're drawing, but you're discarding. Like, unless you're digging specifically for specific things, probably not the best, right?
So this is exactly the kind of card that gets better after sideboarding. And the Gizmo Duck, same thing.
Oh.
So after you sideboard, you're able to bring in more situational cards. And with this card, you're able to cycle through, discard a card that isn't as relevant, but now you have situational cards in your deck. So pulling a random card from your deck has a higher likelihood of giving you the answer because you know that you sideboarded in a bunch of your situational cards that are much more impactful in that particular matchup. So you might put this alongside those cards in your sideboard so that you can get to them more quickly when you need them.
I like that. Yeah, there's going to be some specific cards that you probably find here that are good against maybe not necessarily certain matchups, but if you see your opponent doing certain things, or if you feel like maybe I might want to have these characters and play more against this matchup, it might be relevant. I haven't noticed any immediately off the top of my head, right? But there's a couple decent cards. What about just this a 4/4/4 vanilla character? I feel like these are decent to just kind of.
Averaging out willpower, strength, and ink cost is kind of the standard way to do it. The X factor is the lore count. Usually you try to value that similarly to strength or willpower, but not always. Sometimes you double it. I've heard a lot of different approaches, and it'll be very interesting to see how certain cards are valued over others by the players that are playing this weekend.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely like that. And that's really what I'm curious to see. Like, what are people going to be picking? And what cards are really going to showcase their true power? Cards like Giant Cobra, man, the Vanish characters. I'm telling you, the Vanish characters. I think they're going to be so good. I don't see too many actions that can clear them out. But you know what? That's probably going to be some good side decking situation, right? Like, imagine you run into a deck, an opposing Amethyst Steel deck, right? You can side in cards like Double Trouble. This is a card I probably wouldn't keep in my main deck. It deals 1 damage to each up to 2 chosen characters, so that's implying your opponent has 2 characters on board. But if you see your opponent start dropping a bunch of Vanish characters, the Magic Carpet, the Giant Cobras, the Palace Guards, then I feel like I would be like, oh cool, I'll definitely add in the copies of Double Trouble from my side deck into my main deck, right?
Yeah, 2-for-1s always feel good, but on the other hand, planning for your opponent to have 2 characters is just not a winning strategy. So
True,
yeah, I think you're
true.
exactly right. This is very situational, and it might be worth it.
But back to the Giant
Yeah.
Cobra, 3 cost 4/4. Zach, how do you feel about this in your deck?
It's definitely an overstated character. I think that's like the premise behind these Vanish characters is that they are, their drawback is that something can choose them and then they are gone. But I 100% think it's worth it. It's also inkable. I actually want to kind of look at the All Is Found. I wanted to kind of get some thoughts. if we're going to even consider or value anything that's going to accelerate us, is this like a card that you might want to have in a side deck option if you plan on having any other like late game cards that could quote unquote win you the game?
This is a one-way ticket to last place. This is a this is a loser to me.
Yeah, okay, understandable. It seems like it takes too long, right? For this type of strategy, like needing multiple cards in your discard, 5 cost song. It's kind of it's a ramping. Those it was like 3 different things that we don't seem to get to in this format.
Yeah, this is the card that you end up playing, at the dinner that you have 3 hours after you lost, because that's how long it takes to play a card like this and for it to matter.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. So there you guys go. There you guys have it. When you're building your decks, try not to go for so much of a late game strategy. It's looking like you're gonna want to look for some very focus on some very like high value characters, a little bit lower to the ground. 3 cost 4/4, very nice. I do like this bolt right here, 2 cost character. Whenever you quest, if it has no damage, draw and discard a card. Like we were saying, that's another potential side deck card right there. Let's open up one more Arcasia's Island pack. I do believe. Oh, we have our first legendary. Finally, that's our first legendary right here. The Aurora Waking Beauty. Not too good. We do have a singer, for any songs we see, but we haven't really been finding too many songs other than the second copy of This Is My Family. And yeah, another steel coil for our side deck if we really need it. Don't think it's necessary. This is a cool card, the Ms. Bianca. Some more overstated characters. If we have an ally character on board, you can play this on turn 4. I don't know off the top of my head how many allies we've acquired in our card pool, but this is a card that I'd be very excited to see in my packs.
I think we got enough allies. I'm pretty sure I've seen a handful. Once I mentioned that Maid Marian, I was trying to pay a little bit more attention to that. So I think there's enough allies, depending on if you can kind of shift it more with like Emerald, Steel, Sapphire too, if you wanted to kind of go that route, is what I've been also kind of looking at. So this is a very good card pool. I do like that our first legendary is that Singer 5 needed for that all is found. I'm just kidding. But the overall stats on Miss Bianca are not something to shy away from. 4 cost 5/5 in a nutshell is probably going to swing you into a favorable position at the very least, if not kind of take over the game. Being able to just kind of dominate most of the board presence with one character, it's going to take a lot to get Miss Bianca off the board.
This is another one of those where you accept that you're playing it for 6 and you're thrilled to play it for 4 when you can.
Okay, nice. Yeah, 6/5/5, not too bad of a body there either. And I like this Thomas O'Malley too. 3 cost, 4 strength, 2 willpower, has ward. It feels like a guaranteed challenge. Not sure how you guys feel about cards like these, but in general, I think the stats right here speak to me for this type of meta. Because a 4 strength, you can kind of clear most early game threats. These are cards that I'm not too fond of in this format. This feels way too greedy. Coda 2/2, quest for 3. I don't think you need too many 3 questers unless you're just trying to end the game with this. You have to get to 20 lore, right? It's still 20 lore. That's still win con.
Still 20 lore. Still 20 lore.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like you can afford to play some of these like very weak 3 lore questers personally. Moving on, Azurite Sea. Let's see what Azurite Sea has to offer us. Okay. Some interesting cards. Cobra Bubble, 5/3/4 bodyguard, quest for 2. Not the best ability. Pay 2 ink, draw a card, and choose and discard a card. I probably wouldn't be super excited to play that. More award characters for our Emerald package, which is very nice. I know, Zach, you said we've been pulling some good Sapphire Steel cards too. So I do want to also kind of take a look into those. Look, some ally synergy. Our Gadget Hacker Wrench here is an ally. We can play Gadget on turn 3 and then Ms. Bianca on turn 4. That's a pretty decent curve, but not too good of a body here. 3/1/4. When you play an item, this character gains +1 lore this turn. Probably not gonna happen, right? So I don't see anything too good in this pack. This is the first pack where I feel a little underwhelmed. Actually, this Jasmine's kind of nice. I like this Jasmine. Multiple abilities in one card. I feel like this could put you in some good positions because it's very situational.
I like the Mr. Cobra, or the Cobra Bubbles, I think I saw before that. Yeah, there he is. I really like that. The bodyguard with the reusable, what we call a loot mechanic. So, doesn't have to exert. Just pay 2 ink, draw a card, then choose and discard a card, cycle through the deck. These are the types of cards that really, if you keep them on the board for a few turns in a row, start to take over the game, because now you're filtering your hand, you're able to get the answers you need or the threats you need, and all of a sudden, it's just a major advantage to have something like this in play. And you usually have extra ink anyway as you're getting up to turn 5 and so forth. So you're, paying 2, draw a card, you discard something, you play something for 3, and you move along with your day. These are the types of cards I think that you want in a limited pool.
Here's a card that I think goes great for your side deck in this type of meta. Billy Bones, Space Sailor, 3 cost, inkable, 2/2 body, quest for 2. But when this character is banished, you can banish chosen item or location. I don't know how poppin' locations are going to be in this format. I feel like some locations could be good. Like Zach, I know you mentioned we have the library in this card pool, and I think that is a very strong location, both in our regular format and this sealed format. And if your opponent's spamming multiple locations against you, I feel like this could be a very solid side deck card for some of these like strategies that may be lingering in the tournament space. What do you think?
If you don't have a limit to how many cards you can have in your side deck, I don't see why not. But if you have to limit it, then it's up for consideration for sure. However, you may have to consider that those type of strategies might be something that you should be beating anyway. And if that's the case, then you don't need to include this in your side deck.
Okay, interesting. I like the side deck concept for Lorcana. In general, I think cards like this would be like very important in the metagame, like in our regular like constructed format. If we had a side deck, right? Because some of these cards I don't really see the light of day too often. But moving on, next pack. This is our this is our 10th pack right here. So this is Azurite Sea, Megabot, nothing too crazy. Basil, we have King Hubert, some decently statted characters. This is like the third time we pull this Ant Cast right here. 2 cost, 1/3. When this character quests, chosen inventor gains +1 lore this turn. Not good for this format. Ooh, this pack also not my favorite. There's a couple cards here I'm not too fond of. When this character is banished, exert chosen opposing character. Doesn't seem like that's gonna see too much use. How do you guys feel about items? I mean, we mentioned this with the Sapphire Coil, but like high cost items that you can try and get value. No, there's just no room for this type of stuff, right? You're paying 4 ink, possibly skipping a turn, and you have to pay 2 more ink to give a character challenger and evasive. Oof, it's a lot. There's a lot for an item, right?
Yeah, this is the type of thing you put in a more control-y mid-range deck, because it can break stalemates. Where you have a bunch of cards on the board and you're facing off against an opponent. Neither you wants to quest, neither you wants to challenge. You're just kind of sitting there staring at each other, waiting for someone to win. This is the type of card that can break a stalemate, but I got to tell you, when you're coming in from behind, this type of card feels terrible. Because you draw, you're like, oh, and the uninkable is bad. If it didn't have evasive added, it would be totally unplayable. I actually like the 3/2 Basil with evasive instead out of this pack, but it's a rough one.
Yeah, yeah. I think if any card is playable, this one might be it. There is a world where our opponent gets lucky and ends up with some pretty hefty evasive characters. We said Genie Wish Fulfilled is in Shimmering Skies. I feel like that's going to be a problematic character if people have those in their deck. And there's a world where you play Basil, then you curve out into a Jafar, pump it up, swing into their Genie. Not too bad, not too bad. So evasive characters also pretty good. Might be pretty good potentially in this format. Okay, we finally have a location. Haven't really seen many locations here. Perluous Maze. Whenever a character is challenged here, each opponent chooses and discards a card. This is kind of nice. It's an 8 willpower location, but now that I think about it, locations probably, yeah, you're right, Zach. Locations probably are alongside the losing strategy of this format. I think you just want to play characters back to back to back, right?
Yeah, it's tempo. It's a tempo game in limited format. You have to have enough tools to counteract some similar strategies that could be coming out. Like if a lot of people are worried about evasives kind of being more high rolly. Like if you just find more evasives, you should be fine. But you get to have a lot of options with the third color, and I think that allows you to not be so vulnerable to just specific strategies. So these are the players that are going to do well in this type of format are going to have to learn that. They're going to have to learn it sooner or later. I did want to actually ask, Is there ever a world where we're just like valuing two lore bodies and just trying to win the race fast? Is there ever like an aggro approach to a limited format, Albert?
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the sideboard component, limited or most sealed pools at this level end up as mid range of some kind. But there's definitely a world where an aggro strategy can win. The real risk that you run is the same risk you always run with aggro, which is running out of gas and then just kind of sitting there with 15 lore, and your opponent has built up a board and you just can't get past 17, 18, and sitting there. I think with these particular sets, there might be enough, uh, non-character based lore gain to be able to get away with it. It depends what you open, but I would have a really hard time running just a pure hyper aggro strategy in this format.
Next pack of our Azurite Sea, we have Sail the Azurite Sea, which, as we learned earlier, ramping is not the best in this meta, but we have a Basil also, which we can shift onto our other Basil if we decide to go that route. Not too shabby, potentially being able to play a 6-cost character on turn 4. I think that's pretty nice. How do we feel about the idea of like shifting characters in this meta? Obviously, it's not something we can necessarily prioritize, but if I have one copy of Evasive Basil and one copy of Shift Basil, do we take that risk to try and like blow our opponents out of the water?
I think you should undervalue shift.
Oh, really? Okay,
Just because
okay.
just because you're not going to be able to get the consistency that you expect to be able to do it. It's hard anyway to get the consistency enough for shift to really be impactful. Obviously, when it wins, it wins. But you should take the same approach. Be happy to play it for the normal cost, and if you can shift it, that is a thrilling advantage that you get.
Okay, okay, good to know, because I'm over here thinking like, oh, cool, we got some synergy, so I'm super excited to just throw them into the deck, right? But if you're telling me that it's a less consistent strategy, then yeah, good to know not to rely on that. Very, very interesting. Lead the way. This is an interesting card. It's a very simple card. It's a 2-cost action. Your characters gain +2 strength this turn. Are like simple actions like this, like well, these are pretty much irrelevant in the current Lorcana metagame, but in this like draft situation, how hard is it to evaluate or to get value out of a card like this? Because immediately, like on play, you get nothing out of it. You have to have characters, your opponent has to have exerted characters, and you have to be able to swing into those characters, etc. So a card like this doesn't scream like, oh, it's good to me. But is there any cards like this that are worth considering?
Since it's only one time, this is really a stalemate breaker, for a board that's kind of frozen between your opponent. And again, there's so many scenarios where you end up drawing this and you'd much rather have a character to start building yourself back up again or adding to your board. And it's just not the winning strategy, I don't think.
Okay, okay, good to know. Good to know. Yeah, I didn't think
If
so
it said
either.
if it said +2 lore, it'd be like so much better.
We're now on Azurite Sea, the 5th set, which is the last 4 packs we get to pick. And this set definitely feels like it has more locations in it. As you can see, we pulled 3 locations already: Tropical Rainforest, Rapunzel's Tower, Radagon's Party. I think if we were to play like any location, I like Rapunzel's Tower, but again, that doesn't seem like the winning strategy. But giving your characters more willpower in this meta doesn't seem too bad, right? Some other cards that I think are really cool. Ulf the Mime. This is very interesting. A 4-cost character, can quest for 2, 4 strength, 3 willpower, and its drawback is this character can't exert to sing songs. But you probably weren't gonna sing 4-cost songs anyway in this meta, right? I actually tried to just play this unironically in the regular like constructed like format with like Emerald stuff. But yeah, a 4-cost 4 strength character that can quest for 2, doesn't lose out to Brawl, Medusa can't touch it, cards like that. 3 willpower, so it will lose out to the opposing 3 strength characters. But that 4 strength means it'll clear stuff like Lawrence. It has high potential to really get in there every time you quest. It's a threat.
Yeah, it's actually just something that you can like quest with, and it for sure trades into something if they have to remove it. I actually want to talk about the White Rabbit because that's a 3-cost 3/4, and we all know that having like an extra willpower above the cost is somewhat of an overstated body, so I think this is a card you definitely want to consider. Just playing it on turn 3 and it being able to like challenge into something, or just stopping them from questing, because I think that's a big part about this game. Is just sometimes you just play bodies to stop other bodies from going sideways, and this is a good enough body to do that job.
All right, all right. Next pack. Let's see what we get. We have, oh my goodness, another Ulf, bro. We're cooking. If this was me, I'm playing Ulf Control. That is my deck. I'm titling it Ulf Control, Mime Control even. So I like this. We even have a You're Welcome, which I don't know. You know what? I like this card in this format for the reason that you
Super
can,
good.
right. You can either use it on yourself or you can use it on the opponent. Out some problematic cards. Giving your opponent 2 cards seems kind of crazy though in this like sealed.
Look, that's the drawback, but removal, like this is a gotta get rid of it removal. Plus, whatever cards they draw, they got to spend ink to play them, and it's unlikely they have just some bomb that's going to take over the game. They might just draw 2 weenies, and all of a sudden, you ruin their whole plan. You have 3 excellent emerald cards in this pack.
That's a very good point. You know what? This card is very different in this current meta than what it sorry, in this meta than what it would be in like the regular constructed format. Mainly because of what you just said. The expectation for your opponent to just have a big bombs in their deck is very low. Because for the most part, you're trying to build for that like early to mid game consistency. You can't afford to be playing like 7, 8 cost characters and stuff. So if you use this in this format and your opponent just draws a bunch of 1s and 2 cost characters, oh, that must be very frustrating. And what's the third emerald card that you're looking at?
Oh, the Scroop.
The Scroop,
The Scoop is a
really?
great one. Yeah,
Okay, very
evasive
versatile. Hmm.
evasive 2 lore off the bat. The stats are good, and just to have the option to get rid of a damaged character can be important. There could be a big threat that your opponent deployed, and you have to be able to deal with it. I do want to be able to say You're Welcome can choose your own card, so you might get your own card draw from that too. It's a very versatile card. Very very good pack, honestly. If you are going for the Emerald Amethyst Steel.
All right, next pack. Since we found some great Emerald Steel cards, I think there's some good cards in here in general. But yeah, it's looking like the Emerald and Steel cards are really speaking to us. When Will My Life Begin? By the way, I like this card. Not too bad. Draw a card. And it's a 3 cost character, and your opponent can challenge the next turn. So if you're ever trying to keep some stuff alive, maybe there's some potential there. All right, so we have a Happy, a 1 cost character with evasive on our turn. I like that. I like to see that one. We also have some other cool cards as Moana. Ooh, these uninkable overstated cards like Scrooge or Moana. These are probably going to be very, very useful in this meta.
Yeah, you got to be cautious of the uninkable, given the lower, card count in the deck. But if you keep the ratio relatively reasonable, this is the type of thing that starts your snowball.
What about cards like Glimmer versus Glimmer? This is removal to an extent, but you have a
A
very
plus.
big drawback.
A plus.
Really, A plus? Just why? Because obviously some people would say no, this card's bad. You got to banish your own character too. Why do you think A plus?
Worth it, worth it. So it is card disadvantage. That's terrible, but you got to just set it up so that situationally, you're getting a lot of advantage. You use a character to its maximum, get it to where it's 1 damage away from being banished, then you trade it in for somebody's fresh character. It's if played well, which there's going to be a lot of challenging back and forth and a lot of stack damage and a lot of just kind of, like I said, grindy momentum shifts. This is exactly the type of thing that can just make an opponent over-invest in something on the board and then lose it entirely. And you trade something relatively worthless in exchange.
I actually want to get your thoughts on that half Haxwell Crown, Albert. That's a very
Oh,
expensive card, but is that going to be something that can swing you the game? You do get to have the option of having card draw or the ability to exert a chosen characters.
I have lost so many games because I tried to build a control deck and put in cards like this because I'm like, when I get there, this will win me the game. This will take over. And it can work. But you better be sure. You better have a really good curve, and then this better be the plan. You more importantly, you better have a really good strategy about how to get to this card and get it on the board.
yeah, that strategy seems like super important. Like you're gonna really have to,
I'm going to pull Tamatoa.
Yeah, you're gonna have to really commit. You have to really commit to that strategy. And our another pack. I think this is our last pack. Yes, packs open 16. This is our last pack for the Shimmering Skies set. Unfortunately, did not see some of my favorite Shimmering Skies cards like the Elsa, Fit Spirit, or Pete Games. But some pretty neat cards here. We have a Bashful, a 4 cost, 3 strength, 4 willpower character. Actually, this card's kind of buns. This one, you have a Snow White's character gains a bodyguard, Hypnotic Deduction. Draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand to the top of the deck in any order. Technically not a plus. You're not necessarily gaining any new cards, but you're breaking even. You're paying 2 ink. How do you feel about this? Like rearranging your deck in a sense or digging for cards?
It's another A plus card.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Total A plus card.
Okay.
Cycling through the deck, digging 3 cards deep, A plus.
Okay, nice. This is one that I feel like if I didn't hear that from you directly, like I would just disregard. Just like my card game brain says like, oh, I'm paying 1 card to draw 3, so like I'm breaking even, so it's doing nothing. So I would have just ignored it. But you telling me like cycling being that important, like when you're digging for certain things in these situations, it probably adds way more value to this type of card rather than like in any other format.
You get to pick the cards that you put back.
Oh,
You
so you
know?
just pick other cards from your hand, like cards that just suck.
You pick cards you don't need or want, or can't use this turn anyway, and it's no loss. And all of a sudden, here's the thing that you're not maybe thinking about. You now are looking 2 turns into the future and can plan appropriately
That is
for
broken.
the game.
that actually sounds really broken, right? Yeah, plan 2 turns ahead. If you pay this on 2 ink, you can look at your deck and think, you know what, on turn 4, I'm gonna have 4 ink. I can play this 4 cost character. I'm gonna draw. Very nice, very nice. Any other card that stands out to you, Zach or Albert, in this last little pile that we have?
What about Earth Giant? I know it gives your opponent a card, but is something like stat wise, is this worth putting in?
I'd be terrified to play this card.
Really? Okay. I feel like if you're
Terrified to
welcome,
play.
I feel like if you're welcome gives your opponent a card or 2 cards, and you're okay with that. But is removal? You're right. That's removal. Earth Giant's value would have to equate the ability to remove a character, maybe even like 2 characters for it to be worth it. But that quest for 2 is kind of nice. That 5 willpower is kind of nice. Interesting.
I'd probably put it in.
Yeah, I was.
I'd probably put it
I'd take the risk. I would take the risk. Given the limited amount of cards we have, I think I would take the risk. So it's looking like we have all of our packs already opened. 1 legendary, by the way, from all of these packs that we opened. 8 supers, 23 rares, 50 uncommons, and 110 commons. So if you guys are planning on playing this format in general with your friends or at the local game stores, really take into consideration the common and uncommon card pool from sets 5 through 8. I think it'll go a very long way. As you kind of saw, Albert, Zach, and I from the first pack, we're already identifying which cards. Not only were we getting like multiples of, but set out to us, but we're just kind of taking mental notes. Like, cool. Zach noticed a lot of sapphire steel. We noticed a lot of emerald steel, amethyst steel stuff. So I feel like we would probably go with that direction. What do you guys think?
Tough. I think it's like emerald and steel for sure, based on what we got. It could be up in the air whether we pick like ruby or sapphire or even amethyst. But I'm not so sure. There's a lot of cards. And these are the type of this is the thinking that these worlds players that are already thinking about. This is what they're going to be thinking about. And how much time do they have to build a deck?
60 minutes.
They have 60 minutes after basically once they're handed the packs, right?
The jury's still out on exactly how that process is going to work, but the rules say they have 60 minutes to build their deck.
Okay, so 60 minutes to open your packs, identify your cards, get your strategies in order. I think that's a decent amount of time, right? I feel like you could easily like make a little like a deck, test some hands out, solitaire with yourself, and think, okay, you know what, this is not the list. Yeah. So I think that's good. An hour, you have a solid hour to build your deck out of these 24 packs. Yeah, let us know what you guys think down below of the cards we opened. What direction would you guys go with how you build your deck? I feel personally pretty confident with these 24 packs we got. We don't have any like crazy bombs. We don't have like Calhoun or Genie Wish Fulfilled or Doc or anything like that, but I still like some of the cards we got. I think we got some bangers in here. I really like the Emerald Steel stuff that we're going. I think dual ink colors. I think if some of these players can really take advantage of this dual ink strategy, like Zach said, or like we kind of had with our pull the lever combo, I think that'll go a very long way. I wish we pulled more wrong levers. I don't think we pulled a single wrong lever. So if we would have had no wrong lever. Imagine if you had a wrong lever with 2 pull the levers. Ooh, that would have been so good. That would have been so good. Before we conclude on this portion, Albert. So after the 4 rounds of the sealed constructed with the packs, what happens after? Do the players immediately do they start the next round, like round 5, and it's constructed, or do they get a break? How does that work?
They get a lunch break.
Oh, okay, cool. So they get a lunch break. They get to gather their thoughts. I'm assuming they keep all their cards here, and then boom, it's just 3 more rounds of whatever decks they choose to play.
That's right. I have my lunch pin here.
Oh, I love that. Dope,
I'm a
dope.
big fan of the lunch break. I'm militant about it. But yes, they get a lunch break and then they go into triple deck constructed.
All right, triple deck constructed. So if you guys don't know how that works out, you need to make 3 different decks using all 6 inks, and you cannot overlap the inks you use. Albert, anything else you want to say before we call it a day? Going over the sealed format, going over the pricing or the judge expectations. What are we expected to see on the world stream? Is there anything you can kind of let us know that we may not know yet?
I think there are 2 things to look out for. First of all is the emergence of the importance of teams. Preparation is going to win this tournament. That is what is going to determine who wins and who loses. How prepared and how many hours the players put in. They're all great players. This is going to be who can outwork who and who has more help and the work that groups do. The second thing to look out for is these new formats are probably a hint about the future of organized play. We already know that there's going to be an announcement about the future Disney Lorcana Challenge season, and these formats are probably a good way for us to get insight into what Ravensburger's thinking about that. These formats broaden the card pool. We all know that rotation is coming up with Set 9, Fabled. They are definitely already thinking about how to make more formats live for the general public and how to get people playing in more diverse gameplay patterns. They don't just want you to be forced to play core constructed and, jam a couple rounds of Pack Rush in between Disney Lorcana Challenge Swiss rounds. They want you to have a wider variety of options on how to play this game. And this is obviously their top end for the highest level competitions, but I think it's very telling that the grand finals, you have to win with all 3 decks. You have to be a master of all 6 inks in order to win and be the world champion. I think that is a very telling sign for what they want the game to be.
Yeah, I actually got really excited when they announced this format. And I'm really glad you said that, because I would love to see this implemented on not just the world stage. There's so many players that I know on the casual level, the competitive level, where they pull up to their league nights with a different deck every weekend. You know what I mean? And some people are like a jack of all trades, and they whoop me with all 6 inks. And then some people, they're very much like, no, I want to stick to my Ruby Amethyst. And but I like that. I like that Lorcana wants the best players in the game to, like you said, be a master of all 6 inks. And it'd be really cool if we had some local masters. It'd be cool if we had some of these tournaments at the local level. I've played other card games in the past before where they kind of have this situation where you have 3 different options, your opponent is aware, and both of you pick one to ban. So you can't play that, and we have to win with the other ones. I think it does say a lot about like your deck building abilities, and like to showcase that you can play more than just one deck. I know a lot of us love to stick to that one deck that we're really good with, but this is really going to showcase who can kind of navigate their way through the color pool of Lorcana, right, Zach?
Yeah, I honestly wish that there was like a little local tournament going on where we can kind of do something like that to kind of get the similar experience. But this weekend the world's competitors will be doing that themselves. I can't wait. I think there was a little bit of a preface you had on the live stream, Kevin, where one of the players was talking about the preparation that he and I think Ed Chu were taking, and how there's going to be lots of cool things that a bunch of different people are going to want to try out and play at their like local game stores. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what these players can bring us and what Ravensburger has in store for the next season of competitive play, because I want to win some excellent DLC prizes. I want to get some good new foil. I want to see what the new prizes are too. I definitely hope that we are getting more than just a Dragonfire for entries. I hope that there's something in lieu for the amount of patience that everybody's been having for these events. I really hope they hit it out of the park. I can't wait.
Yeah, me too. I just can't get enough of these tournaments. I've had to start playing other card game tournaments, man, because there hasn't been any events this year, man. So Team Ravensburger, let's step it up a little bit. I want to go play for some golden Mickeys. I know Albert over here has some heat that he wanted to show off to the Lorcana community. Some prize cards that look really
Oh
sick.
yeah, these are some of the prizes that were won this year,
Nice,
and
all
it'll be
three.
very
Beautiful.
exciting.
All three in a PSA 10. If you guys didn't
Those are
know,
beautiful.
Albert, head judge for a lot of the Lorcana challenges. I've actually got to meet him, which is very awesome in person. And you're a really awesome dude, and you're a great judge. Like I said, Zach and I have been playing card games for a long time. We've met some pretty mean judges, and you are not one of those. So I appreciate you for. Yeah, I appreciate the way you run the events, bro. I wanted to tell you that personally, especially on camera, because we definitely went to a decent amount of the DLCs. And we just really appreciated PPG and like Team Ravensburger and the people that they hired to run the event, because it really did showcase like you guys care. You guys care about the community. You guys care about the way it's run, and you guys care about the beauty of the competition. Because that's really what it's about for me and a lot of us, bro. Like I want to see the world champion crowned, and I want to see who earns it, and that means so much to me. So to be able to go compete, and so thanks Albert for all the work you did, during this first DLC season. I really hope you stick around and take off the retired from your Twitter bio and just judge, just Lorcana Judge as well. So hopefully we get to see you in the new format. But is there anything you want to say before we call it a day, man? Is there anywhere people can follow you to keep up with your Lorcana journey?
Sure. So there's an initiative for Lorcana Judges. You can find it at lorcanajudges.com. There's also a server that aspiring judges and just people who are interested in the rules can join. You can see the link to it. It's Lorcana Rulebook Hub at the same website. And I just really appreciate the kind words. And the retirement is standing for now, but who knows what the future holds. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. I'll go ahead and have those links in the description below as well. Lorcana, it needs judges. It needs people who are very, invested in this game to this degree. So if that's something you'd like to do, let's say you're not someone who wants to go play every single competitive tournament every weekend. Maybe judging might be the route for you. I know a lot of people who have transitioned from like wanting to be like, out the most competitive person to judging every single event they possibly can, and they love it. And I think it's all for the love of the game. So those resources will be there in the description below. Huge shout out to Albert and all the Lorcana judges for kind of keeping the game alive in that respect, because I know a lot of us have been begging for a judge program and just kind of trying to keep the community together. But yeah, man, once again, thanks Albert for giving us some insight on the first half of the Lorcana World Tournament. Very excited for this weekend. I can't wait to see who's going to be crowned the first Lorcana World Champion. But until then, remember to stay tuned to Lorcana Goons, and we'll see you Goons next time.